After the harsh winter and the prolonged freezing of the waters, the ice finally released its grip and the canal began waking up to misty mornings with a promise of better things to come. We arrived at Stainton Head one morning just in time to see a heartwarming sight. The ice had gone and the swans were back. It looked like they had just arrived and were circling over their old territory before making touchdown. We could even hear their wing beats. I was annoyed as I hadn't had time to get my video camera out of the rucksack and had to rely on the mini camera in my hand, but it was enough just to be able to record the event. You can just see the swans making touchdown at the end of the long stretch. We walked down the towpath and eventually caught up with them round the bend at a widened part of the canal just before Weedy Basin. Here they stopped to feed and we took some photos. This particular morning we had planned to follow the infilled canal section from Stainton to Kendal, so after taking these photos we turned back but planned to return another time. Another misty dawn finds us walking down towards Crooklands, and a familiar sound is evident. Birdsong. The winter season has been so quiet, but it sounds as though that is about to change. We zoom through the mist to film this chaffinch greeting the new dawn. Suddenly he took off and left us listening to his echo. I love a misty morning, but it does make the swans hard to see. This is the Crooklands pair who overwintered here down by the culvert. As I walked under the bridge I spotted a shape shrouded in the mist and stopped dead, reaching for my camera. A cock pheasant sounded the alarm. Then his nerve broke and he flew across the water. South of Crooklands the rookery is in full cry. It sounds chaotic, but they are calls between bonded pairs or between individuals in the community keeping in contact with one another. The females will be on eggs now and the males are out searching for food or sitting patiently nearby. Carrion crow, a relative of the rook, adds his voice to the chorus. More hens and rabbits feed under mist cover. Slowly the mist lifted to reveal other secrets, such as this pristine white mallard. A pretty sight, but nothing prepared us for what we saw next. A black ominous mass on the towpath loomed in the distance, and it looked like our way was barred. When it flapped its wings, we realised it was a cormorant, a rare sight to see one drying its wings on the towpath. Full of excitement, I rushed forward with the camera running without using a tripod. When I did get the tripod set up, he was sitting quite calmly and gave us a good view. Not having seen a cormorant on the Lankey before, this was quite an excitement. They are fish eaters and dive for their prey, swimming fast underwater. Captive cormorants are used by fishermen in China, and they sit on the boats until required to dive for fish. Found mostly on the UK coastline in and around rocky shores and estuaries, this bird is increasingly being seen at inland waterways, best known for this behaviour of holding wings out to dry after swimming. Spotting a flash of white flying past, I reluctantly left the cormorant drying his wings and followed the white shape as it came down further along the canal. This was my lucky day. The elusive goosander was back, and this time I managed to film it, albeit a little shaky without a tripod. They are elusive birds. I found one last year just south of Chewitfield who was a little more camera friendly. But this one didn't want to stick around. He dived and was gone. With the early morning mist lifting nicely, I decided to make my way back to Weedy Basin. On the way I passed some sheep grazing and a dead pike floating belly up in the water. This was huge, between 2 and 3 foot long. And this unusual shot with the top of the closely pruned tree in line with the horizon. Back at Weedy Basin, signs of new spring growth were evident all around the banks. I soon found what I was looking for, coots, and lots of them. 5 pairs to be exact, and all of them wishing to claim this patch for their own. This coot looks a bit mean. What's going on? Oops, looks like a neighbour from hell. Weedy Basin is prime real estate for any breeding waterbird. It has plenty of cover and plenty of places to find food. As a result, it is constantly fought over among the coots. Battles can be intense and involve both sexes. At this time of the year, coots will not welcome guests. spent all day at Weedy Basin and learnt that a single pair had the area with 90% of the central weed bed. At either side, another pair of coots had a territory, and further out still were another 2 pairs. That made 5 breeding pairs in a row, all with designs on the central reed bed. The territory holder must have been in a state of nervous exhaustion, constantly having to patrol his boundaries. One pair in particular were determined to cross that boundary the morning I was filming. They first went onto the bank, presumably to get a better look at how to proceed and, more importantly, to see where the resident male was. They do look very furtive. The female set off first and went quite boldly forward. First she was unchallenged, then she suddenly turned round. She had been spotted. The resident male misses nothing. One wonders if he finds the time to feed. But he does pay a price for this constant vigilance, as we shall later find out. The female returns to her mate and things seem to calm down, but nothing can be peaceful for long in early spring, especially among the coots. Already more trouble is brewing. During the last kerfuffle, another coot managed to sneak unnoticed onto reedbed territory by going over land. Now it stands anxiously, knowing it could be under attack from 2 sides. He moves nearer the bank to see where his adversary is. He stops when the enemy is pinpointed. It tries to cautiously edge away, but oh, it's been spotted. Fortunately, it crosses the reedbed boundary and the resident gives up. Now it has to try and pass unnoticed through the territory of the pair who've just been sent packing from the reedbed. Fortunately for him, this resident does not have a prime territory and is therefore not so vigilant. He's unsure what to do and starts walking away. Then he suddenly starts running and the reedbed male is upon him, but his aggressor stumbles and he gets away. Oh dear, he's injured and he's limping. It is possible he was injured in one of the many fights he's had with his neighbours, but it doesn't stop him fending off unwelcome guests, but he doesn't want to be showing any weakness and he hurries back to the water. He's just in time too. While he's been away, the neighbouring female has finally managed to sneak over the border and he goes after her. When she reaches the other side of his territory, he gives up. Meanwhile, the local mallards take it all in their stride. They are the only ducks here, so they don't have a problem. And the warrior is back patrolling his boundary again, this time with his wife for support. It doesn't stay peaceful for long. The pair next door are spending quality time together but very near the boundary, and this enrages our warrior. He inadvertently crosses the boundary when chasing them, and the tables are turned. He is instantly sent packing. Having seen off the warrior, they relax a few minutes. But these two are determined. This is just a chance to plan their next move. Suddenly they set off once more to try and sneak over the boundary. The female keeps looking round to check her mate is still following. But they're spotted again, and back comes the warrior to patrol the boundary. This is a coup that means business. His intention is clear: don't mess with me. They both stop and seem unsure whether to risk it or not. Another forward rush from the warrior, and they think better of it, turn around and go back home. The female desperately wants the reed bed patch, but she reluctantly turns and follows her mate. But trouble is brewing as the wanderer is back, and he's been spotted. Warrior isn't going to let him escape again. He wastes no time going after him. He stumbles climbing up the bank, but then he's away. But his injured leg lets him down again. He really needs to rest that leg, but he can't afford to. A lot is at stake here. Meanwhile, the wanderer blunders into trouble again as he is spotted by the pair next door, and another battle ensues. I don't think he really knows he's being stalked. There he goes, up on the bank. Now the chase begins. Oh, he's not running away, he's turning around. He's going to stand his ground and fight. It's a showdown, but then the wanderer sees a way out and takes it. His aggressor goes after him, and the chase is on again. Determined to teach the wanderer a lesson, he presses home his attack. As the wanderer crosses into his own territory, the male adopts a defensive boundary posture and hurls insults at his retreating neighbour. And here's the reason behind Warrior's constant vigilance despite his injury. Prime real estate with a nest site that will be well hidden in a few weeks and plenty of cover for a family to hide. It is an important breeding site and the lives of his future offspring depend upon his vigilance now. And as we prepare to leave Weedy Basin, Warrior gives us another demonstration of his determination to evict unwanted guests. By comparison, the moorhens appear very peaceful. Here a male sounds the alarm to his mate, but she realises she's safe where she is and doesn't respond. He follows her cue and calms down. Just a few yards from Weedy Basin, our sharp eyes spotted the female buzzard in a nearby tree. We were lucky to spot her as she was some distance away and my little camcorder struggled to keep her in focus. She spied her mate in the distance and called to him. No response, so she called again. Finally she took flight and joined him in the skies. I was treated to a wonderful aerial display. We left the buzzards soaring high and moved down to Falton Fell. Last time we were here we came across the stricken cygnet, but of course there was no sign of him now. Falton Fell was cloudy and deserted. Well, almost deserted. We found a pair of tufted duck lurking at the top. But even filming across the basin from 200 yards away they were extremely nervous. There was no sign of the swans, and not wishing to upset the tufties too much we carried on down the towpath towards Millness. We soon found the swans at the very next bridge and they came to greet us, but we found a sad sight among the snowdrops. A little common shrew had fallen victim to hunger, cold or even a predator who found him distasteful. A pleasanter sight greeted us at Cinderbarrow, where a collection of waterfowl had overwintered near Home Village. With last year's cygnets now sent on their way, this pair are already spending time on their nest site. Quality time together is precious now before a new family arrives. The tufted ducks that live here are used to the sight of humans and are therefore much easier to photograph. This pair were quite obliging. This one came for a closer look at me. This coot has also selected her nest site. Look at those leaf-like toes, made specially for a life in the water. The mallards too were quite entertaining. Skitting for the sheer joy of it. She's my mate, not yours. You push off. Ramming the message home, we slowed this down so you could see the action. The victorious drake returns to her mate and she displays her position with a victory splash. The audience is wondering what all the fuss is about. Some of these tufties are looking a little nervous, so we'll move on. Home Village is one place along the canal where you can see 3 bridges at once. Moving down the towpath, I marvelled at how things have changed since I was here last. Winter has certainly departed these quarters. I found my first patch of celandines on this stretch, and an early flowering spring beauty. Everywhere the birds are pairing up, but squabbles are evident among the mallards, but in comparison with the coots, life is much more peaceful. A breeding pair of swans will not tolerate strangers in their territory, and the male ensures his mate is in sight all the time. Moving down towards Burton and Kendal, I suddenly came across 2 of last year's cygnets who seemed to be striking out on their own, and I stopped to say hello. They both looked fine, so I bid farewell and walked under the bridge. There I stopped in shock. 4 more cygnets with their mother and no father in sight. I had finally stumbled upon Widow Swanky and all her offspring. What a relief to find her at last, and with all her family still intact. I'd almost given up hope after the severe winter. I was so proud of her. As ever hopeful of food, she followed me along the towpath and caught up with another pair and their 3 cygnets. These three youngsters were about the same age, and their parents surprisingly tolerated the widow and her family. It was such a lovely sight, and I watched them for a few minutes. Unfortunately, the widow's neighbours on the opposite bank became perturbed at my presence, and the large gander began to take exception. He decided to move on and protested loudly while doing so. His mate followed meekly behind, and you could almost sense her grumbling at having to leave a comfortable spot to follow her now hysterical husband. Overjoyed in the knowledge that the brave widow had made it through the winter and reared all her family, we gave them all one last look before we left. Although it was windy, the sun came out and the walk was very pleasant. Sunlight dappled through the trees, and almost immediately we came across another pair of swans. They were obviously intent on building themselves up ready for the breeding season and were feeding voraciously. They were feeding so intently that neither of them had seen two of the cygnets following me until they came very close. The two cygnets were immediately and forcefully seen off by the male. He certainly left them in no doubt that young upstarts were not welcome. Just a few feet away we found another pair, this time of teal, one of our smallest ducks. They were quite nervous, but I managed to film them, and we even took some photos. Teal drakes have very picturesque markings. A pair of mallards on the opposite bank showed us just how effective the female's camouflage is. She needs this when sitting on her nest for 4 long weeks. We were now back at the bridge where the ill-fated robin begged food from us after dark last time we were here. Conditions here are much better now, and prospects for the survivors look much brighter. As we walked under the bridge and approached the last lap of canal before Burton Kendall Culvert, we found another pair of swans. The cob, that's the male, was obviously in a strop and was chasing a cygnet away. My first thought was, oh, Daddy's in a bad mood today, but then I realised he was not chasing away his offspring. There was a family of swans trapped up by the culvert. Look at this beautiful display of white feathers. Even though he had the cygnet trapped, the angry cob gave up the chase as he was obviously outnumbered. He gave a victory flap of his wings and set off back to find his mate. She and their territory were vulnerable to a takeover while he was out of sight. Meanwhile, what of the family trapped under these circumstances? I counted a bonded pair, a sub-adult and last year's cygnet, all squashed into about 20 yards of canal. No wonder the adults looked worried. I couldn't see a way out for them without risking the wrath of the territorial pair. With the recklessness of youth, the cygnet had obviously tried to make a break for it, but had been sent packing. Now he gave up and clambered out to rest on the bank. There was nothing I could do to help and had to leave them to solve this dilemma alone, while I crossed the culvert and headed for the Chewett Field section. The Chewett Field section has a length of canal with 8 locks no longer in use and quiet little backwaters in between, each only a few hundred yards long. At first glance, these quiet little backwaters seem deserted, but if you sit a while and wait, the wildlife will come to you. Excitement filled us when we saw this little bird. There were 2 of them. This one was very shy and we couldn't get close. I zoomed in as much as I dared but didn't have my tripod with me. I eventually identified it as a green sandpiper but needed to study the footage at home with one of my bird books. The characteristic bob of its tail end gave it away. The common sandpiper does not do this. According to the books, this is quite a rare find for this neck of the woods. We also found our first pair of nesting coots. She was very nervous about us filming, so we moved quickly away, trying not to disturb her. The father was nearby, less concerned about us and preening, but still keeping a watchful eye. We returned 10 days later to check on the hostages at the culvert in Burton in Kendal. We found the place deserted, so they'd obviously made good their escape. Further down, I found the cygnet and the immature bird together with another juvenile. There was no sign of the adults. This is a very picturesque part of the canal, with the long stretch to Home Village and Newbiggin Crags in the distance. It was a gorgeous day, and as I wandered down the towpath to see if I could spot the widow, I spied a swan convoy coming this way. This had to be the widow and her brood, but who were all the others? Leading the convoy appeared to be Widow Swanky herself, closely followed by the adult pair she'd been seen with last week. All the juveniles followed closely behind. The widow led the family out onto the bank. She went first, the two adults went second, closely followed by all the youngsters. It was obviously siesta time. I noticed the widow kept her distance from the bonded pair, and they made no effort to join her. I wondered at the intricate relationship with these swans, and I wondered why the pair preferred to remain in a babysitting capacity rather than go off together and start a new family. My eyes scanned the array of juveniles, and I noticed the other three on their way down to join them. Were they too part of this large extended family? These three joined the others without any fuss. They'd just been on their own foraging trip. The sub-adult left the water first. After flapping his wings to give them a quick dry, he made a beeline for the widow. I watched enthralled as they performed this kind of dance with their necks. Obviously this young fella had designs on the widow Swanky, and I was delighted for her. They performed a ritual preening session, but when the widow did a full body shake, seen here in slow motion, the brevity of the situation must have dawned on the impressionable young swan, and he moved away. Another quick neck display and the flirtation was over. The young suitor left the widow alone on the hillside and rejoined his peers. Clearly not a lad ready for commitment, yet. And the bonded pair were enjoying quality time with their offspring. As I set off up to Weedy Basin, I left behind a tranquil scene, but it was full of promise for the future. I reached Weedy Basin in time to witness a couple of minutes soaring by the buzzards, and I whipped out my camcorder to capture it. These birds are just masters of their environment. I see the carrion crows are up to their tricks again. I wonder if this is the one that pulled the buzzard's tail back in winter. Although not in any danger, this chaffinch watched warily from his treetop perch. When he judged it safe, he slipped away. The last 10 days had made a real difference. The canal was definitely coming alive again, judging by the number of whirligig beetles on the surface. These beetles are unique in that their compound eyes are divided so they can see both below and above water at the same time. This enables them to see predators approach from all angles. These little beetles move so fast it's very difficult to keep up with them. Down at Crooklands I found this pair who really made me laugh. And 2 feet behind him, she did exactly the same. Then they both set off walking, then they both suddenly stopped, then they both preened, all in exact synchronisation. A pair in perfect tune with each other. Not so the moorhens. Here the female is bullying her mate to find food for her. He must impress her if he's to be the father of her chicks. I do love this white drake. Today his reflection in the water is just delightful. And here's our perfectly synchronised mallard couple again. This sort of behaviour is designed to reaffirm their relationship and strengthen the bond between them. Calling at Cinderbarrow before setting off home, I checked the pair of swans here. They are usually early nesters, but she is not sitting yet. Swans will typically rest with one leg up over their tail, and the female showed me how she could swim in a straight line using only one leg. It's amazing how she manages to stay on course. Try rowing a boat with just one oar and you'll see how difficult it is. As if to prove that spring really has arrived, a queen bumblebee appeared from nowhere, fumbled around in the grass before climbing a gatepost. She will have hibernated all winter and is now setting off to establish a nest of her own. With spring fully established and the canal residents once again buzzing with preparations for the arrival of the new generation, we prepared to leave, knowing that next time we are here the Lankey will be alive with chicks and ducklings and cygnets and all other youngsters. But the northern reaches had one more surprise for us as we packed away our gear. A flash of white flew into a tree. Drat, I've put my tripod away. Just holding the camcorder, I shakily zoomed in to find a white crow. Yes, it really was a white crow. A bird of far-off legends. I couldn't believe my luck at spotting it just as we were about to leave. It was very nervous, however gave me a gracious few seconds of filming, some of it seen here in slow motion for your benefit. It is only the second white crow I've seen, so I was thrilled at the opportunity to record the moment. Finally he flew away, leaving a magical memory in the new dawn of a bright spring morning on the Lankey.